Certainly, we can take a look at the My Account system, which gives a full backup history. So you can see the machine name and the date that the backup ran and the amount of data that was backed up at that runtime. So we'll show you that. It shows multiple systems. And then we're going to be releasing to our direct clients what we're calling our pulse management system. So in the next couple months, we're going to have a pulse system where it would actually go along with the install at each location and would give you the ability to also push out schedules for backups if you have multiple locations.
One other really important point that I failed to put on this slide, but I want to make sure you guys know, is that we do not require a hardware purchase. Many of our competitors do, and you are absolutely free to use SOS ServerSave on any machine or any box that you currently have running within your system.
So let me open up just a quick, let's bring up our website real quickly, and we can show you where you can have some additional resources after this webinar or later in the week as you're evaluating more. So if we go to our support section, and this is addressing Patrick's question and some other questions we have about, where we install this information. We go to our knowledge base, and then go to our ServerSave section. And do I need a staging server to use SOS ServerSave, which is what Shaylin was just talking about? A lot of competitors require that you buy a piece of their hardware to even talk about what backup service you want to go through. The reason for that is that most of these companies have come from hardware-based solutions, and so they're very much dependent upon the hardware sales and that part of their business to sustain. Well, we've always just been a software company, so we really don't care. What you would do here is this list shows you basically in the different swim lanes we have of where you would install each agent that you have available for you in your business. So on the server side of things, your web server, file server, mail server, database server, whatever it is, you install Image Creator at each one of these locations, and then you would create a backup job specific to that machine and appropriate for that machine to some staging machine. Now again, this is where that proprietary hardware usually comes into play. I know that Dado and Zenith, it's $2,000 out the door, and that's actually a wholesale price. With us, you can just get any black box, just an extra desktop, load it up with some RAM and enough hard drive space to account for all the data that you're going to be creating with the image-based backups, and then you would install what we're calling ImageStream. ImageStream is built specifically with the ability to back up large files, so large system images, and large file sets. So when you have a file server that has 1 million files on it, our main file and folder system wasn't designed for that. It was designed for more humble servers. So now ImageStream is specifically designed to handle a proper server environment. So you install ImageStream and go off-site from there, and that's to help with resources. The encryption locally does take up some system resources, especially on the first backup. So you want to make sure you're not doing this on a production machine. Then you have the online file and folder backup, or ImageStream itself. It can be installed on directly on a workstation or a laptop as well. So yes, you would install the online file and folder program directly on these workstations or laptops, and then schedule backups directly from those off-site. And then we have our mobile applications where these can be downloaded from the iTunes application store or the Droid Marketplace once it's released, and you can use it to back up your contacts, back up photos, and restore or share files straight from your mobile device. So that it helps tremendously because there are services like we talked about, SOS Collaborate, similar to Box.net or Dropbox, good for active data. But sometimes there's data that wouldn't be in your active data backup set that would be helpful here. So for instance, I back up everything on my hard drive currently and the map drives I work on, plus my external drives from years and years of computer use. I wouldn't have all of that data available on my SOS Collaborate account. So sometimes it's really helpful to have that backup access mobilely, and I can search through for a specific file and recover it right away. All right, so let's open up I'm going to open up a remote session, and we can to our server that we're running, and we can go through a quick demo. Any questions while we get this set up? We had a lot come through. Rick has a good question. How powerful does the staging machine have to be? It really depends on the load you're putting on it. But I would recommend, 8 to 16 gigs of hardware. You want it to be as fast as possible, right? I mean, it's just dedicated to doing backup. So I would say 8 to 16 gigs of RAM, load it up with a terabyte drive or more, depending on the service you're putting to it. So it's just really important to understand, what you're trying to do. Patrick Lewis has a question: does the backup run continuously, or does it need to be scheduled? It needs to be scheduled. There really is no, at least I have found no true continuous backup program that doesn't mess with productivity on whatever machine you're running on. Minimum bandwidth recommended as well. You want to get at least, when you're transferring, you want to have at least 600-700 megabits per second. Most people have much faster lines than that, T1 lines. The availability of fiber optics right up to your doorstep these days with Verizon Fios and I believe AT&T Uverse. So it's like, for instance, at my home here in Manhattan Beach, I have Verizon Fios, and I get 25 down and 15 up at my home. So it's recommended to get as fast as you can. It's just important to be aware that certainly your bandwidth is a function of the speed of backup and recovery. Okay. What type of OS does the staging machine need to run on? All of our software needs to be running on a Windows platform. So I would say Windows 7, 8 to 16 gigs of RAM, and enough hard drive space to handle all the data you're sending that way. Linda says, currently we have SOS Online Backup. Is SOS ServerSave an upgrade? Not sure you mentioned this. Absolutely. So you would need to, you can continue using your same backup account. You would just need to talk to one of our specialists, and they'll be able to get you a deal, and we'll assign a server license to your account. Rick asked, do you have plans to go to the Apple platform? Yes, we actually have a Mac application available on our download page, and you can try it out. It's first generation, and we had a lot of good feedback from our light release this last fall, and we're expecting a new release out in the next month, so next 3 to 4 weeks, and we hope that it's going to be successful. Okay, so they got a bunch more questions, but I want to table that and just get through a quick demo. Okay, so we have, this is what ServerSave looks like, except it wouldn't have the Acme brand. This is a faux partner of ours. We do have a very strong partner program for those of you who are interested in that. But you have 5 different agents here. So that goes back to the article that we looked at before with the diagram of where you install each one. So the online backup and recovery is what our file and folder system is. It's what most of you are already using if you're already an SOS customer. So you would install that on workstations and laptops and run it from there. Then you have the bare metal image creator, which is a new part of the program. This is really one of the key components of ServerSave. This allows you to create and recover image files. Exchange granular recovery. One big thing we wanted to do is we didn't want to be like everyone else and have, oh, well, this module costs you this much. Oh, you want to actually recover Exchange. Well, then you have to buy this module and it costs you this much, et cetera, et cetera. So our ServerSave licenses just include Exchange granular recovery, image-based backup and recovery, and and the bare metal image stream to get it off-site. There's no separate module. It's just you get that server license and you can do all this. So bare metal image creator. Let's go ahead and create a backup job. First you get these tabs, and you generally don't go through these tabs that often. So if I go to disk map, you have the Windows Volume Manager, but this is generally taken care of for you in the backup wizard. Backup job, I'm going to delete this so that the scheduling is more open to show. Different destinations, again, this is done through the wizard when you're recovering or creating a backup job. And then just the backup history tab, which is great if you have any type of other monitoring service that you have in place. A lot of people use the freeware Spiceworks. That's a great network and system monitoring tool, and you could make Spiceworks monitor something like this, no problem. So if we go to the wizard and we hit backup, this really just makes it super simple. Okay, so you select the volume you want to back up. This has multiple volumes, so maybe I would want to select both the E drive, which is Exchange, and the C drive. For this demo, I'm just going to do the E drive. The system reserved volume is something that's created upon recovery of a drive. It's not something that you would actually back up. So we would never select system reserved, but let's just select the Exchange drive for now. We hit next, and it actually looks like I need to clear out my F drive here. Let me just delete these. Okay, great. So here we would select the network location for the backup. This is for the local backup. This is Image Creator. So we would either define a network location, so that staging machine, which would be very common. You just put the destination name or path here, and that's fine. Or you can hit Browse and go to an external drive, a map network drive, something of that nature. For this, I'm just going to put it to Virtual Drive F. Hit Next. Then we have the scheduling. So again, with the traditional systems that are in place in most SMBs, like about 75% of SMBs out in the market today, do some sort of hardware-based image backup that requires a lot of switching in and out of drives. So one of the reasons that you have a weekly full backup and then weekly incremental and then incrementals throughout the week strategy was because of the old school way of having to recover this information. You used to have to manually go through and recover through the entire chain up to the point that you want to get to. So if we're running, let's say we have a crash on Friday and you want to restore back to the last backup, which is from Thursday night, the last incremental. You would first have to get your full image from Sunday, recover it. Then you'd have to recover the incremental from Monday, recover the incremental from Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and hope that all of these were successful. Well now, and that really means that you're limited to the speed or the frequency of backups, because it would make the recovery process too long, your restore point objective or restore time objective too long if you had too many incrementals. But now we don't need to do that, so we can run an incremental every 60 minutes. But for that reason, you no longer need to do a full backup more than once. You just do a full backup maybe once a month, once a year, and then you just do incrementals moving forward. So we would just say, okay, every Sunday this Sunday at 6 p.m. we're going to run incrementals. So, and then Sunday through Monday ever going, we're going to run incrementals every hour. And then you would just back up these incrementals offsite every hour, and it would be, back up these incrementals to the staging machine every hour, and then you go offsite with them that night. So that way you have a really easy way of getting back that information. It will show how simple the recovery process is. So this helps you avoid, really managing all that information. Then we have compression methods. So standard, high, standard compression, average compression rate's about 50% from just the raw size of your drives. So we recommend just stick with that. The high compression is 60 to 80%. Takes a little longer, but we just recommend the standard. You can also encrypt the data locally if you need to. We don't recommend it if you are comfortable or can avoid it, as we're already going to encrypt the data before we transfer. So the encrypting encrypted files can take a little longer. So you can do this, of course, but you may see a little longer process time to get the files encrypted locally. And again, that's a 256-bit AES encryption that we are applying locally before we go off-site. You have different commands you can put in, so pre-snapshot, post-snapshot, post-backup. So for anything that you want, for any reason, if you wanted to be paused or restarted or refreshed or anything like that, you can put some batch files in here for those of you who are IT administrators and would be doing something like that. So that's really nice. A couple questions here. Are you familiar with Mozy Pro? If so, what are some of the key differences? Patrick, we're not even playing in the same sandbox anymore with Mozy Pro. They're just not offering what we're offering now. We've always been a more secure and higher rated online backup service, and with the addition of ServerSave, we're not even really competing anymore, which is why they weren't on that sheet. But I have another sheet that I can pull up at the end that we can go through more specifically. Bruce asked, can an existing backup server be used as the transfer machine while continuing to be the on-site backup? Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. The whole goal of the staging machine is just to not be running backups of large images from the production servers. Richard asked, are there any file types that cannot be compressed? I'm sure there are. That's kind of a hard question to ask. It's a general question. So you'll see things like a photograph wouldn't compress too much, but your system volume will compress a lot. So yeah, I mean that's kind of just a case-by-case basis. You'll see when it does or does not compress. A zip file, for example, would not compress. Okay, so you could do the pass-through. We don't recommend it. You could also split the image up into multiple pieces for whatever reason if you wanted to do that. You would probably only want to do this if your incrementals were getting fairly large. So if your incrementals are generally no bigger than 2 gigs. But if they start getting pretty big, or even at 2 gigs, the local process before going off-site does depend on file size. So it's a nonlinear algorithm. So the time to process a 5 gig file versus a 10 gig file is not 2x. It's an exponential growth. So it may be something like 4.7x. And then from 10 to 20 would be maybe 17.9x. There's not a linear relationship with that. So if your incrementals are rather large, then it may help to split this into 1 gig chunks or 2 gig chunks, so that the process will be a little faster. But that's typically not used. So we have our summary of the backup we created, and I hit finish, and that's going to give me a summary here. So I could come in, take a look at what's going on. I can edit this backup job if I like. Notice we're just back here. It's scheduled to kick off in about 12 minutes. But we do have some backups that have incrementals. I can show the restore capability already. So restore here, this is more restoring to overwrite an entire volume. So I'm not going to show this because it's rather limited, whereas Explore Backup is a lot more flexible in that you can restore an image to a virtual drive, which is quite common, as when you typically restore from an image, it's rare that you would just want to boot the whole thing or overwrite an entire drive. Usually it's great to have a machine that's up and running, and then you restore that image to that machine, and then you can take advantage of some of the data that's within that. But we'll see here. A couple questions. Are there any, or this interface you are showing us is through Windows Server? Yes, right now I'm remoted into a Server 2008 box running R2. and this is the image creator wizard that we're in. So it's asking me, okay, well, what backup do you want to recover from? So I would go to wherever my staging machine is or wherever my backup destination is. So I go to backup F. So that backup is probably going to fail in 12 minutes because there's no free space on it. But if I select one of these backups, so backup job 15, incremental 4, I say, okay, let's go ahead and go with this one, hit next. Then I take a look and say, hey, we recognize that you have a whole lot of incrementals for this backup job 15. Which incremental do you want to get to? I'll select 8, and I'll say, okay, no problem. Assign the drive letter to this recovery. So just create virtual drive S and put all this information on that virtual drive. So that's right there. And it is what it is. Just really simple. You don't have to create the volume first and then go ahead and recover to it. It just does it for you here, which is really nice. Mount the backup as read-only. You don't need to be doing that if you're just recovering this as a backup. But if you're going to be using this as a live production environment like recovery, then you would uncheck the not to read-only naturally. So I have next, and then it gives you the file chain that it's going to intelligently do for you. So again, you don't have to recover in this method. The system's going to do it for you. Hit finish. And so we go ahead and refresh. Mohammed asks, same functionality in SBS 2011. Well, sure. I mean, SBS 2011 is new, so of course we're working to get official support for SBS 2011. Right now, it's not officially supported, but we have seen it work without much issue. So once we get through the lot of testing, we'll be able to send out an official support for the 2011 environments. So here we show that, okay, we recovered to virtual drive S, and it's just this exchange volume. So great, that was it. That's all we had to do. And also, you don't even need to open this wizard. Let's say, to recover, let's say if I just opened up this file and I go to my backup drive F and I have one of these images, I could just right-click and quick mount, and it'll just pick the next available drive letter and just quick mount this volume. So it's really quite fast. Okay, so let's say like now we created the backup job. Now we want to use ImageStream to go off-site with it. So we'll say, okay, let's go ahead and do that. So we're in our wizard now. So we say, let's set up our online backup. And just as simple as our file and folder software. So we got the F drive here. Let's say maybe, some of our other drives are the file and folder parts of our system. You can select those too, no problem. You just select what you want to back up. And then we would just select this whole F drive to back up. Now the first backup will take some time because it's that full image, that first full image, and that's going to take a good amount of time. When you're running, how much time does this take? Great question. If you're running a T1 and you have 1.5 megabits per second up and down, then we see roughly about an hour per gig of data. And that's, of course, a ton of variables in line, but on average we see about an hour per gig. Now when you're running your backups, it'll be pretty simple to see how quickly you're running. So if you schedule this to kick off at 6 p.m. and you get an email notification that your 10 gig backup set finished at 6 a.m., you know that it took you 1.2 hours per gig of data to run a backup. So that's how you can look at that side of things. And you'll